Welcome to the first ever homeschool basketball rankings video. You'll see right here I've got a gold ball, and this gold ball, if you're watching this video, will be the one time I actually show what it says here. Okay, it's the girls 18 Division III National Champion gold ball from the NCHBC 2015, and my rest of my videos I'm not going to be showing where that's from, so that will be a little history lesson for you, a little quiz if you want to say. That ball was not needed at this year's national championships, the way that the girls basketball tournament played out, and so we had a leftover one, and I thought when I was doing these videos, what better way than to have it for a little bit of a prop for what hopefully will be a long series of videos that will extend through the summer for both boys basketball, girls basketball, and then once we get into the actual season, I'd like to try out these videos with the HSLive365.com rankings that we do throughout the year that just are massive hits. We average over 10,000 hits per ranking released during the year, and that's real exciting. And I'm looking forward to this video that's going to go over Varsity Boys 2014-15 season's final results. And we're not going to cover every ranking. In fact, we're just going to get a couple to a few teams here tonight. But what's exciting about these rankings that we're going to be running is being able to talk about not just last season, but also be talking about what's coming this 2015 and 16 season. When it's June, so there's things happening. There's teams with summer leagues going on. There's new players coming in. There's teams know, hey, this player's not coming back. And so I'm excited to get an opportunity to bring you all sorts of information. We've got coaches that are not returning. We've got players that are transferring that I'm already getting information about now that we'll be going over in some of the later videos. So, but let's go ahead. We can't start out. I've got my little notes here. We can't start out talking about the rankings without covering some of the obvious. Number one in the nation, the undisputed national champion this last year, is the Oklahoma City Storm. They won the Class 6A Gold Ball. They won the Gold Ball Showdown Series quarterfinals. They knocked off Butternut, Michigan, the Class C champion. They knocked off in the semifinals. They beat the Indianapolis Wildcats, the Class, I believe, 3A champion, and they then won the Undisputed National Championship for the third straight year when they knocked off Houston CHSM. And the Oklahoma City Storm have re-entered Dynasty status. And I could go into a lot about dynasties and homeschool sports, but we don't have a lot of situations where we've seen a dynasty come, get knocked off, and then return. I believe the Storm is the only team that has returned to dynasty status. If down the road HCYA were to win some get on a run, win 3 straight nationals, or 3 out of 4, or something along those lines, we could see something like that happen. But that's a long ways away for any team to reclaim dynasty status. The Storm. What's interesting about them, and I've got more notes here, but I had a chance to talk to a couple coaches today that we're going to be covering their teams, and the Storm, they lost a lot. But most important for the Storm, Coach Kurt Talbot will be back. His son Cole graduated. A lot of times you see when homeschool coach's child graduates, they move on, but that's not going to be the case for Kurt. And again, you see this happen sometimes within programs that are dynasties. I mean, Thesa Riders, Alan Burt, Oklahoma City Storm had this with Tim Flatt before. So this is not abnormal within dynasty status, but he will be back. Coach Kurt Talbot and his entire coaching staff, Coach Avery and some different coaches, he's got back this next year. One of the interesting things with Coach Talbot is his youngest is he has a younger son coming up, actually, Cody, spelt with a K, like all the Talbots. They all are spelt with K. So Cody, he'll be back playing 12 and under this year, and so we'll see. Maybe Coach Kurt will be sticking around to coach his youngest all the way through. And then Kylie is still in the program, and the girls' side, and his older daughter Kelsey graduated a few years ago. So Coach Talbot, the Storm graduated a tremendous amount of talent. They lost Cole Talbot, Kurt's son, we talked about, an All-American. Cole in his career won 7 gold balls, 6 undisputed titles, and he didn't start playing with the Storm until he was playing 12 and under. They also lost B.J. Maxwell, who was the Maravich Award winner this past year. With Cole, interesting note, in Oklahoma, he was the MVP of the Little City All-Star Game. And so great deal for Cole to win that. B.J. Maxwell I mentioned. Jalone Friday, he graduated. A player from the North, Ryan Kale, not from the North, Ryan Kale was also part of that team. And then a player from the North, Jonah Gresham, was one of the top 3 players on the North team. A lot thought he might use his extra year of eligibility. He graduated early. A great student there as well. So Mark Malone and Wyatt Dressler also graduated, and those two combined for 11 gold balls in their career, 10 undisputed national titles, and that's just impressive. Mark was an All-American, Jalone Friday was an All-American, Wyatt was an All-Region player, and Jonah Gresham, who I mentioned earlier, was All-Region. So that's who they graduated. So, I mean, just to put it in perspective, they lost a lot. It will be very interesting to see how going into the year, you've got a dynasty, but that's a lot of players to have lost. They do return one starter, Tevin Townsend. He'll be back. And outstanding player, a lot of length, and he's got a couple years of eligibility left, so scary player. But with that in mind, the Storm North, who we will get to in the rankings, they will be ranked highest ever finish for a second varsity team, and we'll be getting to that, not today though. They will be moving up Luke Major, Ian Ferris, who was injured at Nationals, so he didn't even play with them. He was also injured at Regionals, but he was a big factor in their wins over Dallas HSAA and Tulsa Noah this past season. Bryant Calloway and Noah Banks will all be moving up, and we'll all be fighting for an opportunity to get substantial playing time, if not starting spots there. I had a chance to talk with Coach Talbot, and he told me he's really excited about this year's team. They will be playing a little bit of a different style. Again, we're in June. I mean, it's the first game of the NBA Finals just ended, and we're already talking about 2015 and 2016. But that's what's unique about these videos, is we're not going to just talk about how a team did during the year. We're going to be talking about what the future holds. And you know, the Storm, they've got some really great 14 and under and 16 and under players that are coming into the program. And a couple of years ago, or a year ago at this point, Chauncey Collins, now at TCU, was named Player of the Year in the state of Oklahoma. He was a consensus Player of the Year. And that really, you saw a big impact on the Storm's roster when several new players came in. And I think that it kind of opened the floodgates when players realized we can win Player of the Year in the state playing for a homeschool team. And that really opened the door in the state of Oklahoma that had never been done. And so a lot of new players for the Storm this year. Right now, I actually have a few players that Coach Talbot told me about that he's really excited about that are playing summer ball with them right now. One of them is Isaiah Hammond, no relation to Jacob Hammond, former Storm player that went on and is playing at University of Nebraska, 6'10", not related to him at all. But actually, Isaiah Hammond played for the Mustang High School last year. And at Mustang, those of you that are familiar with that school, they finished number 2 in the nation in max preps. They went undefeated in the state of Oklahoma. I can't remember the last time that anyone could claim that. They weren't even challenged in Class 6A, the top class in the state of Oklahoma. And they played Dallas HSAA this year and HCYA. I think they beat HCYA by over 50 points. Hammond was not a starter, but was a major contributor, and he'll be he'll be a big addition. Coach Talbot said he is really fast. Just can't believe how fast Hammond is. And so that's going to be very interesting. And we'll talk about the style the Storm are planning on playing next year in a minute here. But I also want to mention a couple other new players that are coming in. Caleb Nichols, Dion Mokes, I hope I'm saying his name right, and Pat Morris. Pat Morris is coming off 2 knee surgeries. He's been out for 18 months. Dion is a 6'5" role player out of Westmore last year, and Caleb was he's from Newcastle. And the other players I mentioned there, they're all going to be juniors. Isaiah Hammond will be a senior, and then you add some great young talent. One other player to mention: last year's Freshman of the Year, Jacob Henry. His status is unknown for this season. It's unsure whether he'll be part of the Storm or not this next year, but outstanding player, was a huge factor in the Storm North's success that, again, we'll be talking about later. Also want to mention Mark Malone, one of the graduating seniors that we talked about. He was the 6th man of the year, National 6th man of the year. So a lot of great talent lost. And Jacob Henry, I mean, him being back would, in that lineup of that Storm team, would be huge, but we'll just have to see what happens there. But Coach Talbot told me that this year there's going to be a lot more pressure and more trapping from his team. He said last year we were okay at it. This year we're going to be great at it. And they ran about a 6 to 7 man rotation. He said this year expect them to expand that and run 8 to 9 man rotation. So they're really excited about what's going on there. So the Oklahoma City Storm, it's one of those deals where we all know they're the undisputed national champion last year. It is what it is. They weren't challenged at nationals, and I think most of their games were 25, 30 points. I think the Indy Wildcats gave them their best game, and it was still a double-digit game. But number 2, so that's number 1. We got that covered. Those of you that hate the Storm, I mean, considering they haven't lost a game to a homeschool team in 3 years, and even when in that stretch they've won 16 under titles, there's a lot of you out there. Dynasties tend to not be liked, and that's how it is. So those of you that don't like the Storm, okay, we're past them. Those of you that love the Storm, then you've got plenty of time there. We're going to move on. We're going to move to number 2 from the 2014-15 season. Your number 2 team in the nation, the CHSM Crimson Knights out of Houston. 3rd-year program. They came, I mean, at one point in the rankings last year, I think they were as low as number 25. I mean, it's just uncanny what they were able to do. They finished as the Class 4A Gold Ball champion. In the Gold Ball Showdown Series quarterfinals, they knocked off a Northwest Indy squad that's young, but played with them for a half. But that second half, that CHSM team just blew them out of the water. And I mean, CHSM's road beating Memphis Metro to get to the on Tuesday, just to get to the gold ball game where they played Kalamazoo Cougars out of Michigan, who only had 2 losses on the entire year, and they get that win. And then their reward is they get Northwest Indy. They knock off Northwest Indy. And then they play Lakeshore Thunder out of Wisconsin, and Lakeshore had knocked off Nashville in overtime in just a thriller, and CHSM hits a shot. Nathan Fontenot, who we'll talk about here in a minute, hits a shot that with 2.5 seconds left that breaks a tie and sent CHSM to their first ever undisputed national championship game. And one note that I've got on here about this historical run for CHSM is, as a 3rd-year program, what's most impressive is they went from 31st place at the 2014 National Championship. That means they won 1 game in Division I. 1 game. To 2nd. I can't remember the last time that's ever happened. And it was just a historical year. You CHSM fans, a lot to be proud of. And little bit of unknown where they're going to be next year, but I can tell you this: Coach Charlie Pomeroy will be back, and that's the good news. Not so good news is they had they graduated a lot of talent as well. Two-time All-American Anthony Palmer, he graduated. Defensive Player of the Year, Josh Stutz, he graduated. Starting guard Joseph Martinson, he also graduated. So a lot lost there, but they have returning starters Caleb Hubbs, who's an All-Region, and Nathan Fontenot. And Nathan, clearly All-Region caliber player, maybe even All-American caliber player. I mean, he played for HCYA Warriors, and they won a gold ball when he was in 16 and under last year at the 2014 National Championships, NCHBC 2014. He won a gold ball in 16U for HCYA and was part of the team that won a gold ball in 18U that lost in double overtime to the Oklahoma City Storms and Chauncey Collins in just the greatest homeschool basketball game of all time. And Fontenot got a lot of playing time in that game with some foul trouble that HCYA had. And so he transfers over to CHSM, and then he's part of getting back to the Undisputed Title Game, not just part of it, but a big part of it. And he'll be back. And just him back, along with Caleb Hubbs, that's two really good returning starters. They also have, and I can't get into names or anything right now. It's a little early. Coach Pomeroy wasn't ready to get that all out there, but a potential transfer who would be a big addition to this team. And, one or two key additions, oftentimes in homeschool basketball, that can make a huge difference. And so it'll be very interesting to see how that goes. City of Houston, hotbed for homeschool basketball, great talent out there. I'm really excited to see what CHSM has coming up. But this last year, you cannot get lost on what they were able to accomplish. Coach Charlie Pomeroy, he makes the most of his talent. And that's the best compliment you can give a coach. I mean, you don't win gold balls, you don't win undisputed banner, you don't win those easily. And some coaches just have the most talent. Coach Charlie Pomeroy, he won a national championship, an undisputed national championship, I want to say in 2004. I could be wrong on that. It could have been 2005, but he won an undisputed national championship. I believe actually it was 2005, where they beat the Feast Patriots. And that year, HCYA wasn't even the best team in Texas, but they put together a run at the national tournament where there were 3 Texas teams in the national Final Four. And of those teams, they were able to win in a double or triple overtime against the Fort Worth Kings Warriors. If you remember the Fort Worth Kings Warriors, you go way back. That's going to date you a little because they only existed for 1 year. A great team. I believe they won the state championship that year. They beat Fort Worth Kings Warriors in overtime. The San Antonio Feast Patriots that year won at the buzzer, beat the Oklahoma City Storm. They came back from like a 15-point deficit. And the Storm choked, missed a bunch of free throws, and Feast capitalized. They win that. Actually, the Austin Royals head coach, Jody McGarity, would probably be able to tell you a lot about that time. I believe he was a part of that. And at the very least, if not as a spectator, I believe he was actually part of it as a player. But don't quote me on that. You just can ask him. I'm sure he remembers that game and that particular year. But Coach Charlie Pomeroy took an HCYA team that no one, I don't even think within their own program, felt like they could accomplish winning the championship. And he took that team and he molded them, he melded them, and by the time they got to the Undisputed National Championship game, they were able to beat Feast at the buzzer. And, that's the sign of a great coach. Defensive-minded, work hard-nosed. I don't know, talent-wise, if they'll even be close to where they were last year. But the bottom line is, this team that they're going to have confidence. And that was something they really struggled with this last year. I think at one point in the year, they were in the low 20s in the rankings. And a lot of times in the teens during the year, during the rankings. And they just never got caught up with that. They opened the season, preseason number 9. They didn't get back to that status until February. But they were able to have a good run. And the good run at regionals. And then they put together a run at nationals that they will never, ever forget. So the CHSM Crimson Knights, number 2, Oklahoma City Storm, number 1. That's all the time we've got today. But we will be coming back and we'll be covering number 3, all the way down. I'd love to get down to 32 and be able to talk about all these great teams and the coaches and everything and get a chance to talk to coaches on the phone, find out what they've got coming back. But for now, number 1, Oklahoma City Storm. They are the official 2014 and 15 end of the season number 1. CHSM number 2. We'll be back. Thank you for watching.